Members, good morning. We've formed the quorum and it's also the appointed time. Thank you for attending the meeting of the PWSC to elect the chairman of the subcommittee. We'll now proceed to the election of chairman of the PWSC for the 2019-2020 session. In accordance with para A and 8 of the House Rules of the PWSC, valid nomination should be made orally by a member, seconded by at least one other member who should not be the member being nominated, and accepted by the member being nominated. Please, a show of hands if you would like to nominate anyone. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, I'd like to nominate Mr. Lo-Wai Kwok. Any seconder? Mr. Gary Chen. All right, I accept the nomination. Since I've been nominated and I've also accepted it, can I invite Mr. Charles Mock, Deputy Chairman, to chair the election of the chairmanship?
引得嘅，係有冇其他提名啊？好，咁我哋聽。
All right. Any other nominations? Mr. Gary Fan. Chair, I'd like to nominate Mr. Ted Hui. Any seconder? Ms. Tanya Chen. Mr. Ted Hui, do you accept? With pleasure. Any other nominations? Mr. Eddie Ju. I nominate Mr. Alvin Young. Mr. Van Young, seconded by Ms. Tanya Chen. Do you accept the nomination, Mr. Young? I do. Mr. Ted Hui. I nominate Mr. Jeremy Tam. Any seconder, please? Ms. Tanya Chen seconds. Mr. Tam, do you accept the nomination? I do. All right, any other nominations? Mr. Gary Fan. Chair, I'd like to nominate Mr. Cheng Chung Tai. Any seconder, please? Ms. Tanya Chen seconds. Do you accept that? Dr. Zhang, I do. Mr. Alvin Young, I have the consent of Dr. Fernando Zhang to be nominated. Any seconder? Ms. Tanya Chen. All right, Dr. Fernando Zhang accepted the nomination. Any other nominations, please? Mr. Ted Hui, I'd like to nominate Mr. Wu Chi-wai. I have his consent. Ms. Tanya Chen seconds. So you have the consent of Mr. Wu Chi-wai already. All right. Any other nominations? Mr. Ted Hui, I'd like to nominate Mr. Roy Kwong. I have his consent. Any seconder? Seconded by Ms. Tanya Chen. Any other nominations? Mr. Jeremy Tam, I nominate Mr. Abraham Sheck. Mr. Sheck? Yes? I don't accept the nomination, but I have to ask whether there is any ones to second the nomination. Ms. Tanya Chen seconds, but you don't accept it. Okay, any other nomination? Mr. Eddie Ju. Any seconder? Ms. Tanya Chen seconds. Do you accept that, Mr. Ju? I do. Any other nominations? Mr. Griffin, Chair, I'd like to nominate Mr. Arnold Kin. I've obtained his consent. Does any member wish to second the nomination? Ms. Tanya Chen. All right. Mr. Fin Young, I'd like to nominate Ms. Claudia Mo. I have her consent. All right. Ms. Tanya Chen seconds. Any other nominations, please? Mr. Ted Hui, I nominate Mr. Andrew Wen. I have his consent. Mr. Andrew Wen is not a member of the subcommittee. Mr. Ted Hui, I nominate Mr. James Toh. Again, he is not a member. I'm sorry. Any other nominations? All right, if there are no other nominations, we have 11 members nominated. All right, I count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The nomination is closed. If there are no other requests, we proceed to a vote. All right, now we hand out the ballot papers.
人要求連1分鐘都冇，佢哋唔講嘅説話，冇得我要求㗎。冇。唔該。啊，好好好。咁當委員係
After you've got your ballot paper, I will announce the election closed and no more ballot papers will be distributed and the ballot papers will be collected. Will members please put your ballot paper personally into the ballot box and please don't leave your seat before you've done so.
有冇人未攞？
Is any member who have yet to receive a ballot paper? Have we all got a ballot paper? All right, everyone has got a ballot paper. If you have finished marking on your ballot paper, then election is closed. No more ballot paper will be distributed. We have distributed 36 ballot papers. If you have finished marking on your ballot papers, will our staff please start collecting the ballot papers?
Oh, 啱啱有人入啊，冇咯，係咯，冇啊，冇得再派啦，收緊選票啦，唔好意思啊，張議員。
We cannot distribute any ballot papers now. We cannot give you any, Mr. Zhang.
員呢？
Members who have made nominations, please come out to supervise the counting of votes. Mr. Yik Chi Ming, Mr. Gary Fei, Mr. Eddie Ju, Mr. Ted Hui, Mr. Alvin Young. I think that's it. All right.
冇人啊？你。
All right. They can trust you to do the job all by yourself.
九號
Number 9. Number 1. 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 Number 9. Number 1. Number 1. Number 9. Number 9. Number 1. Number 9. Number 9. Number 1. 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 Number 9. Number 9. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. All right, we've received 36 ballot papers. So Mr. Whitecock has got 28 votes, and Mr. Eddie Ju 8, and the other candidates have received none. And the total number is correct, and I declare Mr. Loy Kwok elected. The staff will destroy the ballot papers after the meeting. So, Mr. Loy Kwok, I hand over the chair to you.
多謝各位同事嘅支持。
Thank you very much for your support. So, continue to be the chairman of the PWSC. I will ensure that our meeting can be conducted in a fair, efficient, and effective manner according to our rules. And I think you have all worked very hard in considering our agenda items. All right, we'll now proceed to the election of the deputy chairman of the PWSC. A valid nomination shall be made orally by a member, seconded by at least one other member who should not be the member being nominated, and accepted by the member being nominated. Mr. Ray Chan, I nominate Mr. Eddie Ju. Mr. Charles Mock seconds. Do you accept the nomination, Mr. Ju? I do. Any other nominations, please? Any other nominations? Dr. Martin Liu, I nominate Mr. Charles Mock. Any seconder? Mr. Abraham Sheck seconds. Mr. Mock, do you accept the nomination? I really want to support Mr. G this time, so I have to think about it first. Well, he has to think about it. All right. Any other nominations? If not, all right. I can see another hand. Mr. Wong Teng Kwong. I nominate who? Pardon me? I nominate Mr. Stephen Ho. Any seconder? Dr. Martin Liu raised his hand. Mr. Ho, do you accept the nomination? I do. All right, Mr. Ho accepts the nomination.
Any other nominations? Mr. Rachel, did you just raise your hand? I nominate Mr. Charles Mock again. I ask him to reconsider. Any seconders? Any seconders? Ms. Tanya Chen, do you second? I see that Miss Elizabeth Quat has seconded. Do you accept, Mr. Mock? I'm still considering it. Let's see if there are other nominations. If not, I'll have to ask Mr. Mock, what's the result of your consideration? Two members nominated you. Yes, I will accept, but I haven't decided which nomination I should accept. Okay, well, I will accept Mr. Wong Ting Kwong's nomination. No, it's not by him. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong nominated Mr. Holden Chow. Then I accept Mr. Martin Liu's nomination. Any others? I'll count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No more nominations is accepted. We'll put it to the vote.
好啦，仲係派緊票嚇。我見同事仲係派緊票，有冇邊位
We're still distributing ballot papers. Who doesn't have a ballot paper? Miss Claudia Mo? Miss Mo doesn't have one.
咗未啊？毛議員啱入到嚟，應該係
Miss Mo has just entered.
係派票俾毛孟靜議員。
A ballot paper will be given to Miss Mo. Those who are present, who doesn't have a ballot paper, you all have one. The distribution of ballot paper is stopped. The clerk said that we have distributed 44 ballot papers. I now ask staff members to collect the ballot papers after members have affixed the chops. Members, please personally put the ballot paper into the box.
好啊。提名嘅
There are 3 members nominated. Mr. Ray Chan nominates Mr. Eddie Chu, Mr. Monting Kwong nominates Mr. Stephen Ho, Mr. Martin Liu nominates Mr. Charles Mock. The 3 members who have made the nominations, please come forward to supervise the process. Mr. Ray Chan, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, and Mr. Martin Liu.
係廖長江議員係出嚟監票，係黃定光議員出嚟監票。
Mr. Martin Liu, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, Mr. Ray Chan, please come forward.
好啦，係你讀啦。
Please count the votes.
搞勻啲。3號
Number 3. Number 3. Number 1. Number 1. Number 3. Number 3. Number 1. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. Number 2. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. Number 2. Number 3. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. Number 2. Number 3. Number 3. Number 3. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 3. Number 3. We have distributed 44 ballot papers. We have collected 44. The result of the counting. Number 1, Mr. Eddie Chu, 11. Number 2, Mr. Stephen Ho, 7. Number 3, Mr. Charles Mock, 26. I announce that Mr. Charles Mock is elected Deputy Chairman of the Public Works Subcommittee. All ballot papers will be destroyed instantly after under the supervision of the clerk. Today's agenda is the election of the chairman and the deputy chairman. I will work with the Secretariat about the schedule of meetings, and the same will be forwarded to members. The next meeting is tentatively set on the 30th of October, that is, next Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning. Meeting adjourned.
唔該晒你真，順利順利。